lot of people understand the benefits to lowering a weight or the eccentric repetition, but they kind of misuse information, they misinterpret information, and they don't use it to the best of their ability, and therefore they don't maximize their return on investment of time and effort. So one of the things I want to talk about is how to use eccentrics in the most progressive way to maximize your return on investment of time and effort for anybody that wants to get either bigger or stronger. So I created this little whiteboard with a lot of different things on it, and I'll take you through it as I go. A lot of people are visual learners, and this generally helps a lot of people. So I'll put it up there so you can kind of read it for a second, and then I'll take you through point by point. Now, the red means bad. I started to color coordinate the board. Usually it's just one color. And then black is just information, so don't get too hung up on the colors. But the red generally means I have a point that is very important that I'm going to explain. So the first thing you want to do with your training, irrespective of what you train for. Obviously, your program will be designed to accomplish your goal, but the first thing is to impose a demand. Your mindset should always be at the beginning of every set, of every workout, that I am intending to impose a demand on my body right now to disturb it and promote a response. Now, first point here is there's two types of intentions when you're lifting a weight. There's the intention to overcome, and there's the intention to yield. And when you intend to yield, as a result, the body will recruit more fast twitch muscle fibers. So I'll talk about this for a second. I'll go through point by point and talk about this. When you lift a weight, any exercise, think about it, a curl, a bench press, a squat. When you're lifting the weight, your intention is to overcome the resistance, to recruit enough muscle to overcome it, to push it, to lift it, shorten the muscles that are doing the work. When you're lowering a weight, your intention is to yield that weight, to decelerate it, to control it as your muscles lengthen. Your body perceives lengthening actions to be potentially harmful, and as a result, because we're designed to survive, it will recruit more fast twitch muscle fibers to produce the force necessary to yield a load. This is very, very beneficial for anybody that wants to get bigger and stronger, because the fast twitch fibers are the biggest and strongest ones. So you're going to want to subject them to as much tension as possible without overworking your body's capacity to recover if you want to get bigger and stronger. So that's why the eccentric repetition is so important. And there's two different motor patterns depending on what your intention is when you lift a weight. Now, if you want to get the best result, you're going to want to exhaust your muscles to their fullest capacity, concentrically and eccentrically. But most people only exhaust their muscles concentrically, and therefore are leaving gains behind that they could be getting, because optimal growth is the result of exhausting your muscles to their fullest capacity concentrically and eccentrically. Now, a couple other points to take into consideration here. You're 20 to 30% stronger eccentrically. Therefore, your eccentric strength can be framed as your concentric potential strength increase. Because, if you want to get stronger, how much stronger can we expect to gain? What you can expect is that what you can currently lower, you'll someday hopefully be able to lift. So your eccentric strength, 20 to 30% stronger for most people, is your concentric ceiling, or in the near future anyways, what you might be able to concentrically lift. We can't expect to lift more than what we can't even lower right now. Now, because we are stronger eccentrically, because there's greater fast twitch fiber activation, this means to exhaust the muscles eccentrically, you're going to have to do things that you don't normally do that only exhaust your muscles concentrically. So there's a few ways to do this. If you want to increase the eccentric demand, you can either overload the muscles or post-exhaust them. And as far as overload is concerned, you can either go really heavy or perform fast eccentrics, like they did when with plyometrics, a fast eccentric. What happens is when you lower a weight really, really fast, momentum increases the resistance to overcome. So when you're lifting a weight concentrically, momentum lowers the mass to overcome. But when you're lowering a weight, momentum increases the mass to overcome. So I'll give you an example. Anybody that has a nephew or a niece or a child or a pet, and you're laying down in the living room, and for whatever reason, Junior decides to go to the top of the couch and fly through the air like Shawn Michaels and hit you with an elbow drop, and he's only like 40 pounds, but when he hits you with that elbow drop, it feels like 400 pounds. Why is that? Because momentum increased the mass to overcome. So when you're lifting a weight, the faster you lower it, the more muscles are going to need to be recruited, fast twitch fibers are going to be recruited because it's potentially harmful, or at least the brain will perceive it to be, and you're going to have to use more force to overcome the resistance. Now, as for going really, really heavy, it's very, very simple. How can you practically apply this? So if you're 20 to 30% stronger concentrically, and you can lift 200 pounds concentrically through a full range of motion, and you know to build muscle, you're going to want to use 70 to 80% of what you can lift for one. So if you can lift 200 pounds, you're going to probably work with 140 to 160 for whatever exercise that you're performing. But if you're 20 to 30% stronger eccentrically and you can only lift 200 pounds, that means you can lower, 240 to 260 pounds. If I did that right, yeah, 240 to 260 pounds. And if you're only using 140 to 160, that's 100 pounds less than what you could be lowering. It's not going to impose a great enough demand eccentrically on the muscles. So you want to overload them eccentrically. So you could either have a partner push down on the weight to increase the demand eccentrically, which is very, very hard to quantify. Like how much is your partner pushing? It makes it challenging, especially if you're going to be not lifting with your partner all the time. How much extra weight should you put on when he's not there? Another way to practically apply it is if you have a power rack. This is the most practical way to apply this, unless you have what are called weight releasers, which only like super advanced gyms have. So a power rack is the most practical for most people. And what you'll do is if you want to lift 70 to 80% of your max, then you're going to want to lower 70 to 80% of your max eccentrically. So you'll put on another, in the 200-pound example, like use 200 or 210 pounds. Now you can't lift it, but what you can do is you can unhook it and you can lower it down onto the power rack, take off however much weight would bring it back down to your working rate, down to 140 or 160 or anything in between, and then get in and perform your reps. And you're going to have the added benefit of extra fast twitch fiber activation as a result, and therefore you might be able to either perform more reps or use a slightly heavier weight to take advantage of the way your body is designed. Extra fast twitch fiber activation means capacity to produce force is going to be greater. So you can kind of trick your body by contrast into using heavier weights by doing something like that. The other option there was post-exhaust. And with the post-exhaust method, so when you fatigue your muscles concentrically, if you had a partner, or for an exercise like a barbell curl or something that you could cheat the weight up, you cheat the weight up and perform 20 to 30% more reps. So if you perform 10 reps, do like two or three cheat reps where you curl the weight up, swinging it if you have to, and the purpose is not to exhaust the muscles concentrically. So anybody that says it's bad form, no, the set is done. I'm just exhausting my muscles eccentrically now, so I cheated the weight up, and now I'm going to lower it very, very slowly and impose a demand on the muscles so I can exhaust them through their eccentric capacity. Now on the bottom here, I got some notes in red, and the red is indicative that this is not a good idea, and so we'll talk about that. So slow eccentrics for 40x0 tempo are said to create more muscle trauma and muscle tearing, which is going to result in growth, right? X. No, not how it works. Now, eccentrics will cause micro trauma and tearing of the muscle, but the tearing isn't what promotes the growth. The tearing is just a consequence of training. When you use a submaximal weight and you do this slow tempo, this is just garbage tension. Garbage tension. Waste of time, and I'll tell you why. 2 reasons. Number 1, the weight's just too light. The weight you would have to use a 40x0 tempo or a 4 anything tempo is going to be too light to impose enough of demand to promote serious growth. There are benefits to it, and I will get to that, but it's not for the reasons that most people think. Number 2, the slow eccentric creates fatigue, which thwarts power. Powerlifters are very, very aware of this, and this is why they try to do what's called dive bomb a weight. The faster they lower, increases the mass to overcome, increases fast twitch fiber activation, activates the stretch reflex, which we'll talk about at another time, which all contribute to producing force to lift the weight necessary. If you go too slow eccentrically, you're creating fatigue. Your muscles are still working to some degree, and if you're too fatigued to lift the weight in powerlifting, you fail. And if you fail, you just defeated the whole purpose of what you're there to do. So those are 2 reasons why doing slow eccentrics are not a good idea. Where did that come from? Well, Some coaches like Charles Poliquin started to promote tempo prescriptions. Whatever their reasons were, I don't know. They probably have very, very good reasons for it, but it does not adhere to the load times time under optimal or maximal tension principle for building muscle or getting stronger, because you have to use such a fucking lightweight to do that, that it's not going to be beneficial. Now, this isn't to take away from coaches who promote stuff like this, because there's a lot of coaches who promote a lot of different things that I may or may not agree with, who have trained probably more champions than I ever have. And but the one thing I'd like to point out is that sometimes people will be champions irrespective of who their coach is, and that they would have won regardless of their coaching. The perfect example of this right now in 2015 going into 2016 is the Golden State Warriors. Anybody that watches basketball, if you take a look at what the Golden State Warriors are doing, how much influence does a coach really have on a champion's performance? Think about it. Fucking team 2 years ago, Mark Jackson was the coach, turned the franchise around. They fired him for whatever reason. They bring in Steve Kerr, someone who's never coached at the pro level. They win the championship. Steve Kerr, the best coach ever or something? Well, he had health issues. He's not coaching the team going into this year. Luke Walton's the coach. Luke Walton has zero experience as a coach. Team sets the record for most wins to begin a season without a loss. They went fucking over 20 games in a row. They're currently like 25-1. Is this because they have the best coach of all time and he's probably promoting, some things that other coaches wouldn't agree with? No. Some people will win irrespective of who their coach is. So something to take into consideration when a coach promotes something that just doesn't make any fucking sense at all. Now, if you do accumulate a lot of garbage tension by following those stupid tempo prescriptions, what's going to happen is you could potentially increase inflammation and decrease insulin sensitivity to the muscle. What type of response will that have on building muscle and getting stronger? Probably not the best one. So another reason why doing it that way is not the best way. However, there are benefits to performing 4-0x0 type of tempos, and they generally come from the constant tension the muscles are under. There's an occlusion effect. The muscles don't get a chance to relax. Metabolic fatigue, metabolic waste accumulates, and as a result, constant tension, metabolic stress is increased, increase in local growth factors like IGF-1, activation of mTOR, the gene that is most closely associated with protein synthesis, that activates or increases it the most, and then obviously it'll positively affect cell signaling pathways like the EPK and PKB pathways, which will both promote growth in their own right. So there are benefits, but there are better ways to use eccentrics to maximize your return on investment of time and effort. And the way you would do that is to go very, very heavy, do fast eccentrics, or the post-exhaust method. So that right there should help everybody understand the benefits to eccentrics, how to use them in your training so that you can maximize your return on investment of time and effort, and you don't just build up fatigue, thwart power, increase inflammation, and decrease insulin sensitivity. Is not a good idea. You don't want to just do things that'll just tear the muscles for no rhyme or reason, for no real purpose. So if you like the information, feel free to share it. Click the fucking button at the bottom, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to keep bringing it.